Hey, everyone. Welcome into a new edition of the program presented by Novig. My guest this week, JB Bickerstaff, head coach of the Detroit Pistons and one of the front runners for NBA Coach of the Year. Let's get to my conversation with JB. This episode of the program is presented by Novig, the peer-to-peer sports prediction market with no house, no hidden fees, and the best odds in the game. Whether you're a casual fan or a sharp trader, Novig lets you play smarter, win bigger, and make sports picks in a whole new way. And it's available in over 35 states. Learn more at novig.us/Woj and use code the program for a match up to $100 on your first purchase. And we welcome in JB Bickerstaff, the head coach of the Detroit Pistons, the best team in the Eastern Conference right now, and one of the real contenders in the league. JB, it is great to be back with you.
Great to be here. It's always good to talk to you, my man. You know that.
Well, I appreciate it. I want to start here, JB, and we talk about team building and front offices and coaching staffs and how they've got to work together. Having been now the head coach in four different organizations, now with Detroit, you had taken Cleveland to the playoffs and was also a head coach in Memphis and Houston, of course. And then having been an assistant and seen how it's worked with others, how varying are the degrees of autonomy for an NBA coach based on where he is, who he's working for? How different can it be?
It can be night and day, to be honest with you. As far as, philosophy, staff building, all those things that some people may assume that coaches just have the autonomy to make whatever decision, input on draft picks, impact on trades, signings, all those things from each organization that I've been a part of have worked in different ways. To me, the best places have a true partnership where, the conversations are had. And by the end of the day, you leave there with, a succinct idea of what we're going to do. And then now as a coach, it's our responsibility to go out and execute the basketball part of it. But, there's some places where, they will tell you who to hire on your staff. They will tell you what players have to play and how many minutes they have to get. They will tell you, how many pick and rolls does this young player need to play every single night? And then there's some guys that just hire you and they let you do the job. And, they trust that you're going to execute the vision that you guys sit down and talk through. They'll give input throughout the year, things like that. But it does vary. And it's basically a personality thing, too, with who you're working with and, how confident they are in their beliefs. But, also just, how diehard or stringent they want to be and seeing their plan laid out the way that they want it laid out.
And then add another element, JB, into it, ownership. Mm-hmm. Some places, my sense is with Tom Gores in Detroit, not a hands-on owner. He's not in your office before a game telling you who he'd like to see play or in the middle of something going on with a player necessarily when there's, strife or friction with the front office and a coach and a player and owners involved. You've been in places where that's been different. Like, what is that the wild card in it too? You in the front office, and then there's the front office and ownership sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. There are owners, in the league that can get in the way. They hire people to do a job, but then they meddle in how those people do the job based on their own opinion. And sometimes we laugh about it, but it's like, in their other businesses that made them money, they hire people that they trust or, they know what they're doing and they have the experience. So they trust themselves and it's worked for them. But Tom is phenomenal in the amount of support that he lends. the trust that he has in myself and Trajan to do the job. But his question that he asks me every single time we talk is, do you need anything? And how can I help you? And for me, that just gives me the utmost confidence that I can go out and do the job the way the job needs to be done, because from top down, you've got a guy who supports you, who trusts you, to do the job. And, Tom and I talk quite a bit. He FaceTimes me regularly, or we text regularly. But again, it's always, in a way of support. He may ask some questions because he just wants to know, my thoughts on a guy or the team or whatever, but it's never a demand or an order, as long as we're doing the things that we said we were going to do from the beginning. And, he really wanted his guys to feel, cared for, loved, supported. And so that's what we've been trying to do, is make our guys feel as comfortable as we can, let them know that anything they need, we will deliver on, as long as it's helping them personally and not just as basketball players.
When the holidays wind down, what's the one thing you crave most? For me, it's rest. And that's exactly what Cozy Earth delivers. Luxury comfort that makes home the best place to be. Cozy Earth has incredible pajama sets and blankets, like their bamboo pajama set and the Bubble Cuddle blanket. Even the name, Bubble Cuddle, sounds as cozy as it feels. Both are perfect for those winter nights when you're watching a movie, watching the Bonnies, sitting by the fire, anything at all. And here's the best part. It's totally risk-free. You get a 100-night sleep trial. Try them out, and if you don't love your pajamas or your blanket, return them with zero hassle. Plus, there's a 10-year warranty, because once you feel this level of comfort, you'll want it to hang around for a long time. Give the gift of everyday luxury this holiday season. Head to CozyEarth.com and use my code WOJ, W-O-J, for up to 40% off. Just make sure to place your order by December 12th for a guaranteed Christmas delivery. Listening after the 12th? No problem. My code still gets you 20% off year-round. And if you receive a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here on the program with Woj. Wrap the ones you love in luxury with Cozy Earth. I think in any different organization, JB, when you talk about autonomy, you could go down the list. There's certain places that I've seen coaches be in. You may have been in one or two of them, where you could list the people who might have more power than the coach. Start with the owner, the president, the GM, the star player, your second best player, your star player's agent, your second best player's agent, maybe your owner's kid. Like, you can, in some places, you can get pretty far down before we get to the head coach, right? When it comes to relationships with players, and in my experience, it's been, if the player knows that they can go around the coach to the GM, or they can go around the coach and GM to the owner, you've generally got problems in your organization. It is going to be hard. It's hard for that to be a dynamic where you can win. What should that look like in a healthy organization about how you handle, and you've got to handle and manage and keep abreast of what you're doing and why you're doing it with your star player? They drive everything ultimately.
Yeah, it's important that you have a relationship built on trust with your best player. If you want to be a successful head coach in this league, not only trust, but respect. And that comes down to man first before it's coach and player. Because, you want to have honest, open conversations, good or bad, but we all know we're trying to get to the same end game. So the character of the player matters. The character of the coach matters. Character, period, whether it's front office or ownership, that matters. And if you've got a guy who's looking to manipulate at any of those positions, you're going to be in a tough situation, and you're not really going to be able to sustain success, which is what we all want to do ultimately. So if you have high character people in all those positions, then, conversations can happen, right? Like, I don't mind if Cade talks to Trajan or talks to Tom. Like, I know where Cade is coming from. And if he's talking to them, it means we've probably had a conversation about it also. And that makes my job so much easier, where, your best players, feel comfortable enough to talk to you and can tell you the truth. And, they're telling the, front office and ownership the same truth. So that makes my job so much more easy. Because I don't have to worry about, the game being manipulated, the team or the locker room being manipulated, or, how people see me being manipulated, because I know, the conversations that Cade and I have, like, I know where he's coming from. I know where he stands, and vice versa. He knows where I'm coming from. He knows where I stand. He knows the things that I value. I know the things he values. And then we can just continue to build, the team based on a level of trust, which at the end of the day is what team is about. Right. At the end of the day, if your team doesn't trust each other, when you get in tough situations, you're going to fail. And I think we've seen that happen in the league time and time again.
JB, what does communication look like for you, 1 to 15 on your roster? How much individual time do you have to take with everyone from your star players to your role players to a two-way guy who may not play for 2 weeks in a regular season game for you?
I try my best to touch them all every single day, to be honest with you. Before we do shoot around or practice, I make it a purpose to go and speak to everyone. Whether we're getting on the bus, I make sure I speak to everyone who gets on the bus, just so that when you have to have a different conversation or a difficult conversation, that's not the first time that we've talked in weeks. So I give guys an opportunity, in those moments to say what's on their mind. If something's bothering them, like, come to me now. Don't wait 2 weeks. Let's have the conversation now so we can fix the problem before it becomes bigger. And I think that's really, really important in building team, is trying to teach, that communication. Because in game, for example, like, you may have seen some of our guys get into it, but they're trying to get something right. And then they immediately, dap each other up and move on. And now we've solved the problem, instead of going an entire quarter where we can't guard the pick and roll properly because we won't talk to one another. So that communication piece is extremely important. It's text messages, it's on holidays, it's getting to know people's families. All those things I think are extremely important. And it's a new generation where it matters. The younger the guys are, like, they're coming in, they don't know exactly what's going on or what's happening. So the more you talk to them, the more comfortable they feel, and they can go play a little bit more confidently and help the team.
You grew up in a basketball family. Bernie, Bickerstaff, your dad, and you, I have to imagine, are the winningest father-son combo in league history. I can't think of another who've had the success and the longevity both of you have had. Your dad was a trailblazer. He was among the first black coaches. He was, I believe, among the first black general managers, and among the first to do both jobs. When you talk with your dad about coaching and what's going on with your team, are there any elements or even many elements that are unchanged from a league that was very different back then? Are there any constants that you guys can land on and talk about that don't really change, despite how big everything has gotten from when your dad started in the league and the league was a different place?
Yeah, it was a different place for sure. I was thinking about it when you were having the conversation about, where you might fall as far as power in organizations. My dad came from an era where the head coach, in a lot of organizations, was the most powerful guy in the organization. And what the head coach said went, no matter what the topic was. He had that type of
and back then, the
power.
travel manager might have been like third, right?
Yes.
Like, because he also was probably the PR guy. They were mom and pop stores.
Yes, no, exactly. So, one of the things that I learned, and I was lucky enough to work with my dad and see it firsthand. You talk about communication style, but telling the truth to people, even when it might not be easy, is one of the things that I think, hasn't changed as the right thing to do. I tell this story all the time. One day I was in Charlotte with my dad, and it's funny, we were actually playing here in Detroit. And there was a guy my dad coached earlier in his career. And the guy ended up having a Hall of Fame career. And we're sitting on the bench, and the guy walks up to my dad and he says, "Hey, I just want to apologize." He said, "I didn't know what you were doing for me then, but now I recognize all that you did for me. And to me, that just resonated so much. That was in my first year coaching as an assistant coach. And it was just like, that's the right thing to do. You want to tell people the truth. You want to care for them more than just basketball players, because whether in the moment or 10 years from now, they're going to recognize the impact that you had on their lives. And hopefully, they can translate that to somebody else and help pay that forward a little bit. So I think truth and communication still, the way you treat people matters, and players watch. If you treat your best player different than you treat the equipment manager or the trainer or, an assistant coach, players can smell that out, and they can tell, like, the baloney, to say it nicely, that your character truly is. And they won't respect that. They want you to treat everyone the same. And if they see you treating people differently, then, they're not going to respect you the same either.
Just like a coach looks for every edge on game day, Novik gives fans the edge when they make their sports predictions. With no house and no hidden fees, Novik delivers the best odds every time. It's the smarter way to back your instincts. Learn more about Novik, America's #1 sports prediction market, at novik.us/Woj, and use code the program for a match up to $100 on your first purchase. JB, having grown up in the league, which meant you moved around a little bit, and then once you work in basketball, you're going to move. Jobs change and your career evolves. You're moving up the coaching chain as an assistant and then as a head coach, back to an associate head coach and then a head coach again in 2 more stops. You and your wife, Nikki, it is not an easy life to be a coach's wife, coach's kids. There's a lot of it's transient. It hatched an idea for you, though, for a business that you and Nikki have started now, I think, right since going from Cleveland to Detroit, League Life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was, an idea that it's been in the works for a while, but we're just trying to figure out the right way to roll it out. And what we realized is every time you go to a new city, you have to find everything new again. You have to call someone to get a recommendation about a pediatric doctor or a nail salon or a barber or a dentist or schools for your kid, whatever it may be. You're trying to search for the best place for your family to be. And so what Nikki came up with was this idea where we would put it all together and put it on an app. So for professional sports families, no matter where you are, staff, players, coaches, training staff, whoever it may be, it's a resource guide of vetted places that you can just go to. It's broken down in sections, and you can find the best of the best. You work with teams, you work with individuals. Got people who are a part of it. It's a vetted thing, so we make sure that you are a member of a professional sports family. Because what we don't want it to be is just for we want it to be exclusive because there's such high level of trust in these jobs and in these circles that we want to make sure that it continues to remain safe for professional sports families.
Right. And the website, Our League Life, to get to the app, right?
Yep. It's on Instagram. It's Our League Life. You can go to leaguelife.com. You can go to info@leaguelife.com if you have questions or any interest in those types of things. But again, it's one of those things. It's free for everybody, who's a part of it. It's not something that we're putting out trying to get contracts and subscriptions and those types of things. It's free for families in professional sports. So just an opportunity again for us to give back because the game has given us so much.
Well, ironically, I think the Bickerstaffs are staying put for a while in Detroit. Best team in the East. This is a great run for this organization, for you, JB. Have a great holiday season. I'll be rooting for you. And I know we'll talk down the road here.
No, I appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on, and love everything you're doing too. I think you've made huge leaps for your university, and I think you do a hell of a job.
I appreciate it, JB. We'll talk soon. Take care.
Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks again to my guest, Pistons coach JB Bickerstaff. We'll be back next Wednesday with another edition of the program.